I am extremely out of practice. I started talking and I was all echoey and I forgot to plug the microphone in, which is like step one. 101 of recording a video is your microphone needs to be plugged in. So it's plugged in now. And it's a good thing I noticed 2 seconds into recording, not 20 minutes later. So, Happy New Year, angels! I can't believe it's already a week into January, and as it is a week into January, I'm officially 24. My birthday is the 7th of January, so which I really like because as much as January is not the best time to have a birthday because 2 weeks after Christmas, everyone's broke, they're hungover, they are sad that Christmas is over, they're just cold, they want summer back, and for the most part, they're getting back into work or travelling back home, wherever that is. A lot of my friends, that's London. It's impossible to organise something with everyone, so it can be difficult. However, I had a really good birthday. It was basically a birthday week because of everyone being all over the place, and I was prepared this year. I knew to organise things whenever I could get everyone together. I wasn't overly fussed about not having everyone around for my actual birthday because that would be a mission in itself. I've been very spoiled. I've had lots going on, and for an early January birthday, it's been very successful, and it has not felt as miserable as January normally is. So I'm on a good ride, and I think 24, turning 24 so early into the year is quite nice because I feel as though I am experiencing an entire year as one age. I feel as though it's better tracking how my year has been. I don't know why, it just is for me. And although I would obviously love a summer birthday because everyone on a summer birthday gets pub gardens and everyone's more than happy to go out and get pissed. Yeah, it's nice. So, as it is New Year, and I'm sure loads of videos are covering this. I know for a fact they are because I have been watching some of them, and they are sometimes overwhelmingly positive, and some of them are actually very constructive and very helpful. So the idea of this episode, which is my first one in a while, I do apologise, is I am going to kind of talk through my New Year goals. But I understand that a lot of people feel an immense pressure by New Year's resolutions. And I was never overly big on setting them. And I know some people think January is just overrated and it's just you're forced to, become your best self straight after Christmas, which, let's be real, we're not our best selves in December. I'm not. But I'm going to walk through my New Year's resolutions because this year, especially, having just turned 24, I want to basically rebrand a lot of myself. Not necessarily in the way I look. I don't want a whole logo change. I am like anyone else. I have ups and downs with how I feel about how I look. I get a lot of experience with body dysmorphia as a gym girly. It's just part of the game. And also hormonal. It's part of how you're basically told to feel based on your brain that week. I did previous episodes discussing how you see yourself and how your period can influence that and other external, internal factors. But I want to do a rebranding of my journey. So I know a lot of people are big on 5-year plans and making one large plan for themselves to track over a very long period of time. And although that can work for some people, I feel as though the age I am now and where I am in my life, I feel as though a 5-year plan would not benefit me. I have experienced my first ever loss of a job, and that kind of really threw me off. It happened in December, so right at the end of the year, when you are thinking you're going into the year prepared, ready, and I was suddenly, my life was flipped upside down, and I feel as though I have gone back to square one. And although I was going to leave that job anyway, because I felt as though it wasn't serving me and it really wasn't what I wanted to do, I was planning just to kind of coast along until I could find a job. And I was really close to finding a job, and I almost got a job around the same time that I lost that job, and sadly got beat by an internal candidate. So that safety plan was automatically thrown away as well. So obviously that took a lot of processing, and emotionally it was very taxing. I was incredibly distraught by my situation, because when you're young and you're climbing up the career ladder, you expect your progress to be linear, and of course it's not, but you expect it to be. And when it's not, as it so often happens, that things get in the way, things either avoidable or unavoidable block your journey, you're not always prepared, and I wasn't prepared. So I did some time to reflect, and I decided at the end of the day I was going to leave that job anyway, and I didn't want to keep working there. So as shitty as it was, maybe, just maybe, the universe was directing me into a path where I had no choice but to leave that job and find something that I actually want to do, something fulfilling. It was basically the universe's way of saying, you're gonna take your time, you're gonna maybe get comfortable, maybe you need a little push and a sense of urgency to get yourself on the right path, because this is the wrong one, which I do believe everything happens for a reason. It may at the time present itself as not the right thing, but generally it leads you to something much better. So I had a lot of experiences with just life-changing events with family, job, how I see myself. And after I shook myself off and kind of, get your shit together, girl, knock some sense into you. You need to get back onto it. You can't just sit in bed crying. I decided that I need a rebrand. And I know for the most part, most people probably think, everyone says they're gonna make all these changes in the new year or whenever, and they never do. They watch the podcasts, they watch the inspirational videos, and they save all the photos that they want of their life on like a nice Pinterest vision board, which I've done. But they look at them at the end of the year and they think, I've not done any of this. I've not done any of this. Maybe one thing, and it's not even the thing I really wanted. So I know that it can feel a bit half-hearted when you say, I'm going to do all these things. But this year, I wanted to hold myself more accountable to developing the future I want. Because although I know I'm a hard worker, I am ambitious, I can produce the life I want, no matter what it is, I potentially have bad habits of kind of getting comfortable and assuming because one thing has gone right, everything else will. And that's just not how the world works. So this year, I want to make sure that I am prepared as much as I can be, because I was not prepared for everything that happened at the end of the year. I was expecting the year to just flow into the next, just as it had been, and of course it didn't. So, with that being said, let's get started on some of my resolutions, and we'll talk through them. I'll potentially talk through how I attempt to go about them, and maybe just some ways that could help you guys in maybe recognizing what you want to get done by the end of the year. Oh, and a side note, I am big on, I actually got this idea from one of my best friends. So we were talking about Pinterest boards, and for the last 4 years now, I have been creating vision boards on Pinterest that represent maybe the steps to take or the result of those steps, to look back on and remind myself these things that I've congregated into one collection of pretty pictures fundamentally is what I want from my life by the end of the year. This is to remind me that I am working towards these things, whether it be travel or financial success or career or friendships or love or getting the car you want. It could be anything, and I've found it really helpful to kind of visualize my goals for the year. I'm a very visual person. I prefer to see things as colour and inspirational, and I know a lot of people prefer lists, and it can be very helpful to see things as structural and coherent, but I prefer to just have everything in no particular order, because I feel as though if I put myself under stress of I have to do things in these order, they're not going to get done. If I put things in just any order and I realise that I've ticked them off as I've gone, or maybe I've ticked one off while I was doing the other, I feel as though it's much more fulfilling and, what's the word? Gratifying. That's the word. I feel it's much more gratifying to create subconscious themes in your mind that say, these are the things I want to succeed in, and I want to get to a point where I'm not even thinking maybe on my to-do list it should be learn English, consciously develop that mindset and make it a part of my lifestyle. Because if you think of something as a chore, you're not going to want to do it. So, that being said, let's get into some of my resolutions. Just before we begin, I want to say that I don't feel people need to make resolutions. I feel as though people have their own way of going about things. Maybe people don't like starting in the new year. Maybe they like starting a bit later on because it feels like there's a race to complete as much as possible in January, so you prefer it in the later on. Equally, I don't think my list is very conventional, and I don't think there is any specific goals that everyone should be working towards. I'm not recommending that you should do this, you need to do this. This is just personal. These are just things that I want to sort out in my life, and the steps I want to take to rebrand who I want to become. Because at the end of the day, you need to think of yourself as a personal brand. And in order to brand yourself successfully, you need to understand the steps you need to take. First thing in the little notebook. I do not want to contribute to my own anxieties. So I'm going to explain that. So, contributing to my own anxieties basically underpins the fact that I have a lot of self-destructive behaviours. Not really bad ones, minor, tiny little ones, but that build up, that do not help how I feel about myself. And I know it. I am highly aware, I'm highly self-aware that these things do not serve me when I do them. And yet I still do. I was actually listening to a podcast, and I believe it was Grace Beverley's actually, and she had a specialist on there about manifestation. And the specialist was saying that, you know, familiarity is safe. Of course you go back to things that are familiar, even if they don't serve you, even if your brain knows full well that these things are bad for you. They're familiar and they're comfortable, therefore you're going to keep going back to them subconsciously. So it's important to make conscious efforts to deter your brain from making those decisions further. Obviously, felt very red in that moment. I felt exposed. And it got me thinking. And I thought, oh God, maybe I do need to address these things, because I always think I need to stop doing that. But do I? No, that's why we're here discussing it. So, some examples of things that contribute to my anxiety. This one's very common, social media. I'm sure we're all guilty of potentially comparing ourselves to people who we view as successful, whether that be they're travelling for months on end in places you really want to go to, or they've got a promotion for a job that looks so fulfilling and colourful and just such an incredible environment that you want to pursue. Stuff like that. But like we've said before, and as I will continue to say, social media is not realistic. We all use social media as a portfolio of our best versions of ourselves. It's not designed to show every single fault and every single trial and tribulation that we experience in our lives. That's not what that's for, and we know it full well, because when I go to post on social media, is it me crying because I dropped a jelly bean and then I found out I was on my period? No, because I don't want people to think I'm mental. You just don't. And that's not what people are sharing with you either. Unless it's your best friends, you're not going to know what people are going through. And even if they are your best friends, they still might not tell you, because they still might feel shame, or they might feel embarrassed, or they might feel just rubbish about talking about it because they don't want to open that wound again. So I have a tendency, especially when I know I'm having a bad day, to rely on the comforts of social media and doom scrolling through TikTok and Instagram. Are my two worst ones. Might be different for you. It might be Twitter. I had to remove myself off Twitter for obvious reasons. It's every man for himself on that app, and I'm a sensitive girl, and I don't want to. No, just self-explanatory, really. Twitter, but some of my friends have actually gotten to the point where they've removed TikTok because they're like, this doesn't serve me. I've just spent 2 hours of time I could have been doing things that I love, or I could have been contributing to my future success. I could have been recording a video, I could have been applying for jobs, I could have been reading, I could have been watching a documentary, I could have been doing anything to contribute to my knowledge, happiness, or well-being. But I didn't. I doom scrolled for 2 hours because it sucked me in, and which it's meant to do. But it sucked you in and you're stuck. You feel like you're stuck, and then you feel rubbish about yourself because you've just sat in bed scrolling. So some of my friends have fully removed it, and I consider it, but I don't quite have the strength to yet. I did set limitations. I've set an hour. Well, I did them a few months ago. And you can obviously opt to ignore the notification, but I'm quite good at going, no, okay. An hour. How was that? An hour. I haven't even noticed it's been an hour. Let's get off it. But I believe it's probably best to just slowly keep decreasing that time until it's like 5 minutes a day. I've done the same with Instagram. I have half an hour limitation, which can be a bit of a double-edged sword. It could be really good for me if I'm like becoming too obsessed in other people's lifestyles, but also if I'm doing it on a visual, from a visual perspective or content creator perspective, I'm like, oh, I've just run out of time and I need more time. So sometimes I do push that back for creational purposes. But when it comes to just like obsessing over people's profiles and how their lives look, then I say, okay, it's time to draw yourself away because you're just getting overwhelmed with how your life is compared to theirs. So those are the kind of things I'm on about when I'm contributing to my own anxieties. I'm doing things like that I know are not serving me, but I keep doing them anyway. So that is the first on the list. Second thing on the list, find a job or internship that will contribute to my success and happiness. Sounds simple. It's not simple. It's, as I've discovered, not only from this time, but from previous times, especially after graduating uni, January is like not a great time to look for jobs and apply, because Christmas has just happened and everyone has been, it's one of the only times the majority of the population are off work at the same time. So it's pretty hard to get a hold of people because they're not in work. And I've even received so many notifications for jobs that I've applied for to say, like, in the new year, it's going to take longer, babe, because everyone only just probably got back into office this week or last week. And, they've got probably a whole load of things to tick off the task list. And the job application is probably going to be lengthier. It's just part of January time. Compared to when I was applying after I just graduated uni, I want to apply for things that genuinely interest me and try new things that I may not want to do forever, but will contribute to my progress and my knowledge of whether that be marketing or events or whatever I want to go into. I don't want to limit my options, but equally, I'm not just going to go for anything. If it's not compatible with you, you shouldn't apply for it. You need to recognise equally what you want from a job. When you read a job description, you see what they are looking for in a candidate. You should do the same for an employer. What are your non-negotiables? I personally like flexible working hours because of the lifestyle I lead, and I am not necessarily someone who thrives in a strict schedule where it's this time of day to this time of day. I prefer to work based on quality, not quantity, and I feel as though a flexible work environment encourages that. You need to identify your non-negotiables for the job you want, and if they don't offer the non-negotiables for you, then it's not the job for you. But the general consensus is that if you think you're bad for a job, that's not necessarily the case. It might just be the job isn't for you. Maybe the job is bad for you. Maybe it offers an environment that's not good for your specific personality or your work style. Maybe you just went for something that you thought for a long time you wanted, and then you found out, I don't enjoy this. And of course you're not going to put all your effort and energy into something you don't enjoy, because you're going to feel like you're just working towards something that inevitably you're going to leave anyway. So that is important for me this year. I want to find something that has those non-negotiables, that is something I'm interested in doing for a company that I'm interested in, not just pick anything. And I want to find opportunities constantly to try new things and learn new things, because I'm someone who loves experiencing and learning different skill sets. So that's a big priority on my January list. Okay, next thing. I want to do monthly check-ins with myself. And as I said earlier, but didn't really say earlier because I kind of forgot, is my friend who makes a Pinterest board, like we do vision boards equally. She does one for each month of the year. And I know what you're thinking, because I thought it, I was like, that's a lot of work. It's not really, is it? Because I spend so much time on Pinterest anyway. I can't believe I had the audacity to be like, wow, that's so much work. You're just collecting pretty pictures, Erin. Get over yourself. But she was explaining she does a monthly vision board because, and she's completely right, your goals and expectations for what your life is going to look like does change each month. You might succeed in certain things before the end of the year, or maybe you change your mind, which is absolutely fine. If a plan doesn't work out, that's absolutely okay. You don't have to hold it against you for the rest of your life. You have to say, okay, that didn't quite work out. We'll either come back to it or pursue something different. So it's important to check in with yourself monthly and not only identify what you want to succeed within this month and the next, but also see if you're progressing and hold yourself accountable for if you're not and if you are. And if you're not, that's not necessarily like an excuse to say, oh, I'm just a shit person, like I've got no ambition, I've got this. It's not an opportunity to just absolutely slate your work ethic or your lifestyle choices. It's maybe just a chance to say, okay, why is this not working? What do I need to change? And is it changeable? And if not, then I just need to do something else and recognize that some things are just not meant to be. It's like what they say. Well, I just love that I say. It's like what they say, but I've never heard anyone say anything like this. Basically, I read it on Pinterest, but I just say, it's like what people say. But basically, I saw on Pinterest, which is the correct form of where I found it, is that when a flower begins to wilt or a plant begins to die, you don't blame the plant, you change its environment and it's what it's getting. So imagine yourself as the plant. If you're feeling like you're not thriving and you'll just feel like you're wilting away, recognize what you're not getting or the environment around you, and just recognize that it's not just you. Like, you don't just have to say, oh, I'm just not good at that thing. No, hun, you just need a different environment and you need certain things to change in your life, and then potentially those things will begin to thrive. And if not, just go, hands up, okay, we need to try something else. Okay, the next thing on the list. I want to identify what success looks like for me this year. So I believe when we think of success, we just think of a concoction of girl boss attitude, workaholic. She's working the 9 to 5, she's getting the paycheck, she's getting paid well. And as much as I would like to thrive for that lifestyle eventually, I don't know if it will serve me right now or even in the future. As much as that is desirable, maybe that's just not who I am. So, success for me is definitely going to look different to the next person because everyone's idea of success is different. So, like I said in the previous, where I want non negotiables when applying for a job, I need to identify what potentially is successful career wise for me. Is it about money or is it about a healthy work environment? Is it about collaborations with people that encourage creativity and encourage you to thrive and develop those skills? Or is it, do you want a work environment that's completely remote, completely full time in office where you can work everywhere, anywhere? Like, what does that look like for me? And equally, as I am a big gym girly, I had a problem with seeing success as I will have my perfect body like whenever. And again, the perfect body is different for everyone. Even if you ate the exact same diet and performed the exact same workout routine as everyone's going to look different. No one's going to look the same. So recognizing that, as much as it is inspirational and a real like kick up the ass to watch gym influencers I love, and they really like encourage me to be okay, like I'm gonna get to the gym and I'm gonna work hard like that bitches and I'm gonna eat better. Just because I don't look like them doesn't mean I'm inevitably like failing in the gym. Sometimes people just want to maintain their weight. Sometimes people just want to do it for mental health reasons. And although I was overly obsessed with how I looked in the gym to begin with, and still have moments where I'm obviously comparing myself, it's okay to go to the gym and take breaks and maybe go 3 times a week one week, 4 times a week the next, maybe only once another week because you're really busy and you're really tired and you're really fatigued or you're ill or you're on your period. You need to kind of flow with your life. And that's the same for in the gym. Looking at what success looks like for me will also help me drive what I want to do each month. I could say success looks like to me is finding a job or internship that will contribute to my happiness and learning. And it is realistic and it equally is attainable. And as well as if you set yourself a goal for when to do it, which is, which isn't too time sensitive. I'm not going to say I'm going to find a job in 2 weeks because based on the time of the year and the current economy, I'm probably not going to find a job in 2 weeks. And you just need to consider those factors as well, which I think is important for when you are setting those goals for yourself. Okay, next thing. I want to practice mental resilience. So, I'll explain what I mean by that. Personally, I am a very sensitive person. I am a very anxious person. I have a tendency to allow my self-doubt and my lack of confidence that sometimes seeps into me to determine what I do and how I feel and opportunities that I take or opportunities that I just straight up avoid because I'm fearful that I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy enough. When, yes, I've been told that by some people, but equally, the majority of people have said you're so much more and you are successful in your own way and you're worthy. But I choose to Ignore the 99 people in the room that say all these positive things about me, and recognize my skills and my strengths and my kindness. And I choose to listen to the one person that says, you're not good enough for this job. You're like not doing well in the gym. And I'm sure everyone has that person, or has had in the past, that have inevitably inbuilt this mindset into them that maybe I shouldn't go for that, because maybe I am bad at that thing, which is never a case. Like, you should never listen to the person who is telling you those things, because for the most part, those people are projecting what they feel for themselves onto you. As someone who lacks mental resilience, I will hear those things and I will believe those things, and I will carry those things with me for weeks or months. And sometimes I manage to forget about them, but sometimes they just pop into my brain, and it puts me right back into a rut of like, oh yeah, maybe I am bad at these things that I really wanted to pursue, or maybe I shouldn't go for that thing because maybe I don't deserve them. I need to stop that. Which I recognise in quite a few of my friends as well. And, you know, sadly, we do live in a world where just because people are there to protect you or teach you doesn't mean they're good people, and doesn't mean they will. So I feel as though it's important to recognise that people may tell you things, but they're not true. You are the only person that knows you in and out. And if it is a case of you feel as though you need to improve at something, there's always opportunity to learn and grow. Those things shouldn't be held against you as if you've committed a heinous crime. When you make a mistake, hold your hands up and say, okay, I made a mistake, but now I can learn that I won't do that again, or I can take a different path, or I can ask for help. So I feel as though it's important to build up mental resilience, especially for the workplace. A lot of people don't apply to things because they've been told that they don't deserve it or they're not good at something, and therefore they believe it, and then they never go for that thing that could have been amazing. It could have been the perfect job for them, could have been the perfect opportunity, but instead we decide to listen to people who probably don't even know what they're doing and just decide to be nasty about it. I feel as though mental resilience is something I need to work on, because I am very bad at thinking, oh my god, like, am I really that terrible of a person? And I don't think, no. You never are, no matter what someone says. I know it's hard because you think, I've left school, why are there still people acting this way? Some people just don't grow out of it, girl. Some people just do not grow out of it. And sadly, that's something that you have to learn as an adult, that people don't always mature. And if people were rude and nasty then, they're probably going to be just the same person now. This one I think is very conventional and would probably be on a few people's goals for the year, although maybe slightly different. So the next one is, I want to become more of a morning person. And I don't mean, before we say anything, I'm not going to be that girl that is doing her 5 to 9 before her 9 to 5. I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. for anyone. No one. That's a non-negotiable. I don't want a job that makes me I don't want to get up at 5 a.m. for a job. I don't think that's a bad or lazy thing to say. I don't want to get up at 5 a.m. I like sleep. Like, and no matter how much sleep I get, I always think I could sleep later. I probably have something like wrong with me. Like, I'm probably missing some vitamins, or I'm probably low on iron. But when I say I want to be a morning person, yeah, I don't mean I want to get up at 5 a.m. I just mean I want to embrace my mornings more, because especially with the job I previously had, I found that I didn't want to get up because I was getting up for a job I didn't like. So I'd obviously kind of put off getting up and, probably snooze the alarm quite a few times. But even now that I'm out of that situation and I feel so much better for it, I recognise that I've got into a habit of snoozing that alarm. And it's hard to break out of, especially as I've been doing it for however many months. Probably before uni, I was that kid that was at school like half an hour early just because I wanted to be there and I wanted to see my friends and talk to them. So I'd be willing to get up at 6 a.m. and, I'd do a whole morning routine. I'd leave the door out, I'd be out the door by 7 and I'd be at school at like 7:30. And I don't know what happened, probably uni, emotionally draining and a lot of drinking. I just didn't do that anymore. And as much as I used to really love being a morning person, I recognize now that I maybe don't want to be getting up at 6 a.m. because I don't think I need to anymore. And if I don't want to, I don't have to, just because, clean girl aesthetic Pilates princess tells me that, you should be thriving in the morning and journaling. That's just not me. Like, I am not that gal. If you are, I congratulate you. It's just not for me. I'm more of an evening gal. Like, I like to do my journaling in the evening. I like to do a whole wind down. But I have got in the habit of getting up late or just not necessarily getting up late, but oversleeping, which is equally as bad for you as not getting enough sleep. Because if you oversleep, and I recognised it a lot, if you have set an alarm and it wakes you up and you turn it off, I have a tendency of getting back into sleep, into a really, really deep sleep. And then I keep getting ripped out of it every like 10-20 minutes until I eventually get up. And I feel like shit because my brain is like, what are we doing, gal? Are we sleeping? Are we not? And I get a headache. I feel like just really like sluggish, and I should have just got up after the first alarm and maybe like felt a bit tired for 5 minutes and then woken up, compared to oversleeping and feeling like oddly tired still for the rest of the day. So it's more to do with oversleeping than sleeping in late. But I want to, maybe even the weekends, we'll see. And I've done it so far. I want to get up at between 7 and 7:30. I'm giving myself that window because I feel as though if I let myself get comfortable in just sleeping in late, oversleeping, when it comes to getting back into work, I'm going to find it hard. And I want to be focused on learning that new job and interacting with people, and not about how tired I am because I overslept again. And I also don't want to go in feeling like shit because I set my alarm again and ignored it again, and like I thought I would. And then I feel as though I've let myself down. And you don't want to treat yourself or teach yourself that you can't rely on yourself, because you will just sleep in again like you always do. So I want to make a conscious effort to actually wake up with my alarm. That's what it's there for. If you set it and you ignore it, what's the point? So yeah, but not 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. A nice round 7 a.m. Okay, we've got 2 more. So I want to embrace more outdoorsy activities, which I know sounds a bit hippie of me. Not really, but I want to touch grass. Like, I love being outside. When I was younger, I used to go surfing all the time with my auntie. We used to go on dog walks all the time. Me, mum and dad would go on bike rides. I would just be outside doing whatever. And I know it's obviously when you're a kid, you tend to do more stuff like that. But the last part of this year, or in general this year, I have been doing so much more outside of my house. Like, I've explored 2 new countries that I've never been to with my boyfriend, and we did a lot on those holidays. We weren't just lounging by a pool, we were visiting historic monuments, and we were walking hiking trails, and we were going to the beach and going swimming. And equally, we've done a lot of walks here. I've been places with my friends where we've been outside, and even if it is just sitting in a beer garden with your friends and chatting, just being outside and getting the fresh air you need is so good for you and so beneficial. And I want to rely on being in touch with nature and being outside so that I don't have an opportunity to rely on technology to keep me entertained. Because having the attention span of a 5-year-old when you're watching TV and on your phone is not good. I've become better, but I want to go outside more and maybe explore more hobbies where I am getting back into surfing, because I loved surfing and I haven't done it in years. Like, it is a bit more difficult now that I don't live by the beach, but it's still accessible. It's still only like an hour drive, and I could easily do it. On like a weekend, you just get up early, go to the beach, and have a great time, rather than getting up late, sitting in, don't like just kind of like, what do I do? And then just playing Sims for 4 hours. As much as that's fun, just encouraging myself to go and socialize with the people I love being around, that encourage me to be myself and explore new opportunities for fun, like going hiking, going with my friends to like little petting farms and like going to see animals, or going to like terrarium building sessions, which my boyfriend got me for my birthday. I'm really excited. I get to build my own terrarium. Little side note there. And maybe like going to foraging events, just anything to get me outside and get me connected with what we're supposed to be around the majority of the time, which is nature. Peace and tranquility, and just experiencing a more still and slow life, rather than just rushing around expecting loads from myself, rather just enjoying being. And I think that's going to be much better for me than the habit of scrolling through TikTok or playing Sims for 18 hours, which actually flows nicely into my final resolution, which is to pick up more hobbies. A couple of years ago, I had some issues with self-identity, especially after I went through a breakup. I really didn't know who I was. It came to it and I was like, okay, I'm finally like at a point where I can just focus on myself, and I have the opportunity to explore what are my actual passions in life. And I spent this year getting back into things that I like doing and exploring things that make me happy. For example, reading. I am an avid reader. I absolutely adore books. I'm currently looking at them piled up. I need like a shelf or something. I'm running out of space. It's got to the point where I've like put them all neatly up against each other, and then there's some like just stacked up because where I've like got no room. Like I just have to put them anywhere. So yeah, I need to get a shelving unit at some point because I'm running out of space. But I adore reading, and I'm not an overly like fast reader. I prefer to take things very slow. I prefer to like, put some like tavern ambience on and like properly get into it like in the evening with some candles lit. Or like say I'm travelling up on the train. And I'm also not someone who like reads like a book a week. I'm not very good at that. I love reading And I wanted to do something that felt not too much pressure, but was an incentive to get me reading more, because I love it. So I set up a little reading challenge, which they do on Goodreads, which is what I did it on. And Goodreads is like a little app to like track the books you've read, the books you want to read, and like I said, reading challenges, which is where I set myself a goal for how many books I wanted to read in a year. And I actually did it, which was surprising for me, because normally I probably read about 4 books a year. I would always pick up a book and I'd love it and I'd adore it. But I would get into a habit of, if I stopped reading for 2 weeks, I would not go back to it for like months, even though I loved doing it. So I set myself the goal of reading 12 books, obviously one for each month, which ended up like more. Some of them like took less time, some of them took more time, depending on the size of the book, obviously. But it gave me such like a sense of like gratitude, like taking those, like, oh yeah, I've got like only 5 more books to go until the end of the year. And also it got me really into reading books just one after the other. Like, I would some nights finish a book and then just pick up one straight away. And I'm so thankful that I did that, because I hate like losing a hobby just because you like maybe you've got lazy or you are distracted by your phone or other things. And so that's an example of something I picked up this year that has definitely contributed to my enjoyment and my happiness. But I want to pick up something else this year, because there's so many hobbies and activities in the world, and I just want to explore some. My friend knits, and I know that sounds very old lady of me, but I really want to learn to knit. So I'm gonna get her to teach me how to knit, because you can gain so many more friends and just bonding experiences and enjoyment from things that you're learning to do, or discovering things that you never knew you'd know, and then doing them and then thinking, wow, like I can do my like knitting while I watch my program, and then now it's been 4 hours and I haven't even checked my phone. That would be ideal. Something that's I enjoy so much that time just like disappears from me, but I'm doing something that's maybe like cognitively like beneficial, like maybe like brain teasers, something that's contributing to you working those little brain cells and rubbing them together, but also having fun with it, rather than, just doing something because it's like, oh, I should probably do this. Because I feel as though a lot of people think, oh, I should probably do this. It would probably be good for me. But I want to find something that's genuinely becomes like a lifelong passion of mine. Yeah, those are my list of resolutions. And as I said, I don't expect to just complete these all this month, or that list the way I said them. I'm not expecting to complete them in that order. These are just things I ideally want to figure out and work towards before 2025 is over. Which also, can we talk about that? 2025 that's scary. Like, we are the same distance from 2000 than we are to 2050. That's disgusting. The fact that I was born in 2001 and now all of a sudden I'm 24. Scary. My brother's 12, so it also makes me feel really old. He reminds me often. But yeah, so I think I've set some really realistic goals for the end of the year to look back on, and yeah, I hope to maybe work on one every month, or consistently work on them throughout the year. Like the hobbies one, for example, would definitely be something that's worked on throughout the entire year. whereas finding a job that I love and like fulfills me would probably only take up January, February, maybe March. I'd be a bit worried if it was still under process in December. So yeah, one little thing I do want to say before we finish up this episode is my friends and me have this habit, which I think would be really good idea for you guys to try. Is originally it was just a joke, but at the end of 2023, we were just at the pub after going out to like some light show or something. So it was probably not quite the new year. It was probably like coming to the like middle of December. We just made in our little one of our notes in our phones, we made some predictions for what we thought was going to happen at like in 2024. And some of them were really silly, some of them like we really wanted to happen for each other. And then at the obviously the end of 2024, we looked back on them. So we looked back, saw what we accomplished, saw that maybe we wanted to transfer into the new year, or maybe things that didn't like weren't relevant anymore. And although it's like can be quite fun, it can be quite rewarding to work on something as a group, and also quite holding each other accountable, like, remember when you said you were going to do this, have you done this yet? So, and then obviously we have made our predictions again for what's going to happen this year, and I think it's something we've just randomly picked up, and it will probably be an annual tradition now, which is really nice. Like, it also is an excuse to like get us like connected again, especially as we all like kind of live in separate areas now. Two of the girls live all the way in London, and me and my other friend live like just towns away from each other, so obviously we don't get to be as a four as much as we used to. So it's also a great opportunity to come together via FaceTime or as a group and look back on the bizarre and interesting predictions we had for each other and how our lives have developed since. So I would definitely recommend getting you and your friends together and making a little list in your notes of what you predict for each other. It could be as wacky or as serious as you want. We do like a mix to kind of keep it fun, but kind of keep it like not serious, but like proper goals. So yeah, I would recommend it. And that will conclude this episode. And yeah, well, hopefully this will also act as something for me to look back on to say, oh yeah, I remember when I said I wanted to do that and I've done it. So this podcast is also a really good way to make sure I am doing the things I want to do and need to do. Anyway, I am going to love you and leave you, angels. And as I am unemployed now, I have more time to dedicate to the podcast, which I love doing. This is definitely something that is a hobby that I picked up that I really enjoy. That concludes. I hope you have a lovely ordinary day. I will be seeing you next week. And I hope you receive all the love and support and magic that you deserve and need and want in your 2025. So I will be seeing you next week. Bye.